The Triumph Dolomite is one of those cars that really captured a moment in time. Whether through racing or as its road-going variant, Triumph's small saloon really did make a massive impact. Another example of this during the automotive era of the 1970s was by Panther Westwinds, the perfect example of bespoke, pushed to the limit, like the infamous Lima. Two complete polar opposites. But what happens when you mix these two icons of the 1970s? Well, you get one of the biggest flops in British automotive history, the luxury Panther Rio, the most luxurious and ambitious Triumph Dolomite ever built. In this video we tell the story of the Panther Rio and find out if it was simply misunderstood, or about as luxurious as a toilet in Harrods. Hello everybody and welcome to this video on one of the biggest luxury flops ever, the Panther Rio. An ambitious little car based on the Triumph Dolomite. If you're not subscribed already, please make sure to do so. It really does help me out and you get to see more of this. More history videos, more cars and classics uncovered and more projects. In this video we dive into the Panther Rio and its history as well as how it came to be and how many are left. Make sure to like the video if you liked it and share if you want other people to see it. Drop a comment below, what are your thoughts on the Panther Rio and do you have any more interesting cars or memories you'd like to share? But without further delay, let's get into this story on one of the craziest British cars ever made. To understand the Panther Rio we need to go back to where it all began. The 1970s was an interesting time for motoring in Britain to say the least. British Leyland, formed in 1968, was trying to get itself together, and somehow amidst all the turmoil producing absolute legends like the Triumph Stag, and continuing the innovations of its heavy-hitting brands like Rover with the P6. Among the usual problems of the British motor industry of the time, there was another spanner in the works, a fuel crisis, but not just one, a few. The first was in 1968. A petrol shortage crippled the motorist and plunged sales of large cars off a cliff. But that wasn't all. In 1973, another crisis would hit with the Yom Kippur War. Naturally, with a war in the Middle East, an oil embargo would follow. The big luxury cars of the era looked even less appealing, but the big players like British Leyland, Ford and so on were feeling the pressure of the sales slump. But for the smaller car companies, this would be a do or die situation. A small car company of the time was Panther Westwinds. Founded in 1972 by Robert Jankel, Panther would create retro-styled cars with modern components from standard production cars, giving the style and substance with the ease of maintenance. Panther Westwinds' first car, launched in 1972, was the Panther J72. An ultra-luxury roadster styled to evoke the legendary Jaguar SS100, but of course with Panther's legendary twist. This car was based on the mechanicals of the Jaguar XJ, making it far easier to maintain, far more refined, and of course, modern. Engines available included most of the XJ range, but right at the top was the Jaguar 5.3 litre V12. The exclusivity of these cars lent themselves to the world of celebrity. Owners included Freddie Mercury and Elizabeth Taylor. But this car and its subsequent models were never going to be the volume sellers that Panther needed. And with the fallout from the wars in the Middle East, it was clear luxury cars were going in a different direction, more conscious luxury. Meanwhile, for British Leyland, Project Ajax had burst onto the scene. The Triumph Dolomite, a small saloon car for the post-fuel crisis world, a handsome, well-appointed mid-range car styled by Giovanni Michelotti. The Dolomites that left Canley were selling well, and this was noted by Robert Jankel and his co-director David Franks. And as the sales of large cars faltered in the world of smaller luxury cars, Panther needed a volume seller. A recrafted Dolomite could, if executed correctly, offer the perfect blend of luxury, tradition and modern all in one, fitting in with the Panther ethos, but at a more palatable price, both in purchase and running costs. The Dolomite had performance and technology on its side as well, with its 2 litre 16-valve engines in the Sprint and its more modest 1850cc engined variant. It appeared it would be the perfect fit to go upmarket. Robert would create the initial sketches. The car would need to be lengthened, but not in the way you might think. You see, most of the length would be gained in the massive chrome nose. A styling motif clearly inspired by Rolls-Royce became the centrepiece of the car, with new hand-beaten aluminium bodywork, updating the front of the car and the bonnet to match. New headlights from a Mark I Ford Granada were also added, and to finish it off, a chin spoiler. All of the outer metalwork would be unique to the Rio, making it completely different to the car it was based upon. Tying the bright work in was a sill finisher, unifying the front to rear, with the rear receiving new lights akin to the Mercedes W123, and a slightly reformed boot to match the rest of the car. Further upgrades were added to the outside: new wheels, vinyl roof, sunroof, new mirrors, with paint options virtually unlimited. On the inside was where it really came together: a full leather trimmed dashboard, all hand stitched, new wider and far more comfortable leather seats, extra sound deadening, finishers on every panel to make sure not a speck of metal was present, the floors covered in the finest deep pile carpeting, a new all-wood dashboard with the finest burr walnut, with other trees optional. Electric windows and a new steering wheel were added, with the centre console trimmed in leather or vinyl. The car had a few options as well. An automatic transmission and air conditioning were two of them. The range consisted of two models: the standard Rio, based on the Dolomite 1850 HL, and the Especiale, based on the Sprint, which we'll call the Special for the sake of this video. The standard car boasted 91 brake horsepower and a 100 mph top speed. The Special would produce 127 brake horsepower and breeze past the standard car with 112 mph top speed. The biggest question was, how much should this Dolomite-based car trimmed to Rolls-Royce standards, as stated at the time, cost? The standard Dolomite Sprint in 1976 cost £3,283, so maybe £1,000 or £2,000 over. After all, it did come with quite a few extras and hand-beaten bespoke panels. No, the Special would cost £9,445, nearly £2,000 more than the XJ-V12 of the time, about 3 Triumph Dolomite Sprints. What about the standard Rio, you may ask? £8,392. Adjusted for inflation, the Special would cost today £73,509, an eye-watering, absolutely crazy figure for such a car. The standard Rio wouldn't be much better either, at £65,352. The car's price was one thing. After all, this was being marketed to the upper echelons of society. There was one thing that could counter the price: being put in front of the right people at the right time. If played right in the market with the right distribution network, it could sell well. AROnline, one of the most prestigious dealer distribution networks in the UK, was tapped to lead the charge, with a deal being drawn up for 100 cars to be distributed through its extensive and exclusive dealer network, selling the Rio alongside some of the best names of the time. But this deal was still confirmed, and with it still in the wind, the Rio would be launched at the 1974 Earls Court Motor Show. The public and press reaction would be mixed. Some didn't quite know what to make of it. Others were in awe of the sheer attention to detail and craftsmanship on a Dolomite Sprint. In 1975, when the car went on sale, the first disaster would befall the Rio. The AROnline deal would fall through. The 100 cars weren't to be sold through the dealer network. The plant, tipped to produce 250 cars per year, had its forecast downsized to just 50. Instead of having a dealer network to go to, you had to order through Panther themselves. Without mass market distribution, the Rio appeared to be doomed. Maybe the press could drum up some interest. Sadly, the hits just kept coming for the Rio. When the car was handed to the press, they remarked for £10,000 the Rio's interior was cramped. Headroom front and rear, even with the seat at their lowest settings, was not good enough for a luxury car. This was all thanks to the new thicker and wider seats. Great in a big car, far too big for a small car. The back doors were another feature Motor Magazine honed in on. Because of the metalwork and the thicker door cards, the opening was incredibly cramped. It seemed the very appointments that were supposed to enhance the Rio were now going to be its downfall. It really wasn't looking good. But as always, one thing stood out, which is quite ironic considering it was based on a British leyland car. The fit and finish was described as exemplary. Crafted with extreme care, incredible attention to detail, from the stitching on the leather right down to the perfectly sculpted badges. Even on the outside, the quality was consistent. Doors, boot and bonnet, all shut with that satisfying bank vault-like feel. The Rio really did take the Dolomite to new decadent heights. On the ride and handling, they remarked it felt far more stable than the Sprint and absorbed the bumps at Myra with ease. The cars hit the mark on fuel economy as well, with the Sprint-based Special achieving 25 miles per gallon with mixed driving. Compared to its competitor, the 5.3-litre V12 Jaguar XJ, it almost doubled it, with the Jaguar only managing 13.2 miles per gallon. All of this sounds positive, but unfortunately for the Rio, there was another external force that would scupper its maker's plans once again. Oil in 1975 was finally flowing freely again around the world. The fuel crisis had ended in March 1974 when the embargo was lifted. The case for the Rio was slowly slipping away. This in combination with the HRO deal now scrapped, the car was now almost irrelevant. Too expensive but still absolutely incredible nonetheless. Panther had a very hard time getting customers to pay attention. Panther would apparently receive 36 orders over the Rio's lifetime, but according to some sources, a bit of number fudging was at play, with the serial numbers adjusted to make the cars appear more popular than they were. The actual number made was 18, and after only 2 years, the Rio would cease production. Panther's mass market dreams were over, and by 1980 the company was no more, with the name and rights to designs being purchased by a South Korean businessman, continuing production of cars like the DeVille up until the mid-80s. In 1989 they would launch the Panther Solo, but would cease production again in the mid-90s. But this wasn't the end for Panther. Robert Jankel would purchase the name back in 2001 to create a new sports car, but would sadly pass away in 2005, with his son describing the car as an unfinished symphony, with the world denied the final Panther. Only 5 Panther Rios are known to survive today: URH 747R, SAY 300R, MYL 363P and TTM 314. The final car's registration is unknown. The Panther Rio was certainly ambitious, but it wasn't rubbish, as some have claimed. The car was based on one of BLMC's greatest hits, would be launched in the wrong place at the wrong time. The wrong place with the lack of dealership representation. The mainstream appeal couldn't take place without a mainstream reach. The wrong time, after the oil crisis ended and the world recovered. The car's price on the face of it, with cars like Jaguar's elegant V12 powered saloon and new offerings from Mercedes and BMW, would end up looking preposterous. It may have been in the wrong place and time, but it certainly wasn't the wrong car. With its incredible build quality, craftsmanship and attention to detail, the Panther Rio was denied success, not because it lacked style and substance, but because of its unfortunate circumstances. And with that, it's the end of the video. What is your opinion on the Panther Rio, and do you have any memories of any incredible cars of this era? Let me know in the comments below. But as always, thank you for watching, keep watching and remember to subscribe for more of this, and I'll see you in the next one.